Literate students will know that we make a big deal of untested topics. And we do that because I feel it stands to reason that if something has not come up in an exam, it's more likely to, particularly if it has never ever been asked. However, before you settle down with your cocoa and your specification to watch this video in the hope that it's going to be a source of divine revelation, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not a prophet. I teach about them to year 8, but I'm not one. And so I have no divine source of revelation. I cannot predict the future. In addition, I don't work for Eduqas as somebody who sets exams or somebody who marks exams for A level. And so there is absolutely no insider knowledge at work here. However, I am obsessed with this specification. I feel like I've lived and breathed it because I want to help you guys get the best grades that you can, and I enjoy teaching it. And so these are my outsider observations. I also want to stress that the new exams, the new A-level exams, were designed to be more challenging. So we already know that they added in a third more content. We already know that in addition, they said you had to revise everything, you couldn't drop a theme. But in addition, and Eduqas repeated this at a training event recently, the papers are not supposed to be predictable. And so what I'm doing here is going against that little piece of advice. And so do not hunt me down if I'm wrong, because I'm warning you that I might be. I will say, however, that I predicted most of last year's, if not all, of the A2 Christianity paper. However, I am not saying do not revise the whole course. You need to. It's not nice, but that's how it is. What I am saying, though, is that in that revision, you can prioritise untested topics. And when you're revising, there will be times that you come across something and you go, this is really hard, and you're tempted to move on. However, if that is an untested topic, don't gloss over it. Look at your revision materials, get in touch with us, and fix that gap, because it's likely to be on the paper. So here, this is just Christianity, and I've divided this table into 4. So there's theme 1, theme 2, theme 3, and theme 4. Literate students, you've also got this for the whole A level, but you've got this highlighted document that tells you the sub-themes or the bits within a sub-theme that are untested. But I'm going to go over that in this table. And so you have got, going across the top, the sample paper. So the sample paper has never ever been tested. It was just given to us so we knew what an exam looked like, basically. And the more real exams that are sat, the less relevant the sample paper becomes. AS 2017, AS 2018, A2 2018, that is the only A2 exam that has been tested. This is last year's. And the AS paper that was sat, I think at the beginning or end of last week or the week before. So very, very recent. The columns that are of the most interest to students sitting their A2 exam, their A-level exam this summer, are AS 2018 and A2 2018. AS 2018 is relevant because the candidates that sit this exam will be sitting your exam. And so it'd be very, very unfair and dull if they sat this question in both their AS and their A2 exam. And so I'm going to say you can be as certain as you can possibly be that if a question appears here, it's unlikely to appear in your A2 exam. It may be, if they did it awfully, they might repeat it, but I think it's unlikely. But it's not certain. Also, because there's only been one A2 exam, and for each theme there is A2 material, and theme 3 is all A2 material, there's a lot of untested A2 material. And so they are unlikely to repeat A2 questions from last year. This column here is the AS exam that has just been sat. Lit students will see that there are topics here that we're saying to you are untested, and they have been until a week ago. However, I don't think that means that they won't appear on the A2 exam this year, because it's different candidates. I have also colour-coded according to the themes, because this just helps us spot untested topics. So theme 1A for religious figures and sacred text is the birth stories. And birth stories was asked on A2 2018, so the only A2 paper there's been, and also on the AS 2019. I said earlier that they might retest something if candidates don't do it very well. This Part B question really caught candidates out, both at Litchit and nationally, and so I find it very interesting that they followed it up with an AS incarnation question. I don't know, I didn't set the exam, but I think there's a link between the two, but that's by the by. Theme 1B is on the resurrection. Litchit students will know we have been saying all year NTY untested topic, and so we were not surprised when he appeared on the AS exam. Does not mean he won't appear on your exam, because it's different candidates. Also, there has not been a question on the nature of the resurrected body, or what do the accounts teach us about the afterlife, the soul and death. And so that's another little untested topic. Theme 1C rather. This is the one that Litchit students think is a bit vague, and so you might be relieved to know that the Bible is a source of wisdom and authority in daily life was on last year's AS paper, so unlikely to be on your paper. Theme 1D. This is getting into A2 material now, and so this is the Bible as a source of wisdom and authority, and that was on last year's A2 paper. And so that then leaves Theme 1E, which is basically Kerygma. That was on the sample paper. And so the big news from Theme 1 is that 2 views of Jesus, Crossan and Wright, is untested. I would be amazed if that isn't the question for Theme 1. So number 1 priority, Crossan and Wright for Theme 1. If you don't get either of those, that is a learning emergency, and fix it. Running behind, in roughly equal place, I would say is either N.T. Wright or the nature of the body resurrection question, and possibly Kerygma. But if it's just one theme, one question, I think it's going to be Crossan or Wright, 2 views of Jesus. This is theme 2. So theme 2 is the religious concepts and religious life topic. And you will notice the A2 column is empty for last year. This gutted us. We were all fired up to write about Trinity and Luther and all that nice juicy stuff, and it didn't appear. So I would be amazed if theme 2 is not on this year's A2 paper. But it is very, very heavily tested because theme 2 is split over 2 AS units. And so AS students kind of get a double go at answering on theme 2. So there is not really an untested whole topic. However, if you look at theme 2A, which is the nature of God, that includes Sally McFaig and Maltman. There has never been a Maltman question. And so just like I'm saying Crossan and Wright for theme 1, I'm also saying Maltman for theme 2. Maltman, remember, is suffering God. So that would be my absolute number 1 priority. Behind that, I would say is Luther. And Litchit students know that we have been stressing Luther as an untested topic. And so again, we were not surprised when he came up on this year's AS paper, but it does not mean that he won't appear on your paper. Least likely to come up, I think, is what came up on the AS paper, so atonement and the stuff on the early church using the book of Acts. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but I think generally speaking it's less likely. Also, the questions on Trinity, both on the sample paper and AS 2017, have been a little bit odd. It wouldn't surprise me if they asked perhaps a more standard question on the Trinity. But number one topic for theme 2 has to be Moltmann, followed by Luther, I would say. Then theme 3. Now theme 3 is an A2 topic. It can only be tested in an A2 exam. And so there's only really been one chance. I personally would be amazed if theme 3 is not in part A, because they can only put it in part A on A2 papers. You really need to revise the whole theme anyway, but there isn't much that hasn't been tested. But attitudes to wealth, untested. Migration and how it affects Christianity in the UK, that's theme 3B, that is untested. Theme 3C, Luther has been tested, but not daily. Theme 3D, so that's about secularization, that is untested. Theme 3E, challenges from science, was on last year's A2 paper. And then theme 3F is pluralism. So that's John Hick and Karl Rahner. That is untested. So theme 3, there's a lot of work to do. Theme 4 is also quite heavily tested. Interestingly, it was missing from the AS exam of this year. There are, however, some little gaps. So theme 4A is about baptism, and that has been asked. However, there hasn't been an adult baptism question, so that could be a possibility. But I think the fact that baptism was on last year's AS paper makes it unlikely. Theme 4B is Eucharist. That has been asked. Theme 4C is Christmas and Easter. Easter has been asked twice. Christmas has never been asked. Theme 4D is unification. That has only been asked on the sample paper. Theme 4E, charismatic movement. We predicted that would turn up last year and it did, so unlikely on your paper. Liberation theology has only ever been asked on the AS, on the SAM paper rather, the sample paper. So for theme 4, it has been heavily tested, but the gaps are Christmas. So that would be my number one topic. You might also want to look at the topics on the sample paper, liberation theology, which I think Litchit students would love. Perhaps a little less exciting is World Council of Churches. So we're just going to run through untested topics. Theme 1, Crossan and Wright. Theme 2 is Moltmann, but don't forget Luther, only asked on the most recent AS exam. Theme 3, look at all that it could be. That's why I think it's likely to appear in part A. And theme 4, the only untested bit is Christmas. Remember, I am not saying don't revise the course. I am saying make these highlighted topics a priority.